people wanted us to discuss, but basically the state of retro game collecting today.
So I think this is a really broad topic. I think it's a good topic. I think it's something that, given Pat and myself and what we do, we should probably discuss it. Um,
Retro game collecting, I should say.
so, full disclosure first, if you don't know who I am, and if you don't, you're probably better off, but I...
Better off.
I'm,
You're better off not knowing who the hell I am.
I'm the general manager of a used retro video game store. So just keep that in mind.
A nice one too. The best one in San Diego, and it's bullshit that award didn't go to your chain this year.
They bought it. Did you see how they bought it? They bought it
No.
by promising pizza parties, and they gave away credit for votes.
Play and trade is fucking
They
awful.
gave away credit for votes.
I went to a play and trade. There's one about 15 minutes from here, 20 minutes, and the selection wasn't good. The only thing, out of all the things I had thought about buying, they had a Game.com in the box. That's like the only things.
Well, did it come with the lights out pack-in? I sure hope so.
I think it might have.
Yeah.
But I didn't buy it.
Right.
And the guy, it's funny because that guy, I'm going to get in trouble. I've seen him actually try to sell stuff at the swap meet. I don't know if he still works there, but no. Anyway, Luna Video Games.
Okay.
You work there. It's a great store.
Right, but
fair
I mean,
prices.
more importantly, I want to get that out of the way because my living does rely on selling of these games. So we'll touch on that.
I'm not going to begrudge you that, even though in my videos I am against the swap meet recently.
And I'm against collectors, so I mean it doesn't really.
Which is interesting because they're part of
right.
it.
I realize, yeah. So it's a crazy mixed up world we live in.
It's a crazy.
So we did have someone, and I feel like this is a good jumping off point. We did have someone who asked us, more or less, do we think the retro gaming scene, and that's how I'm going to refer to it. I don't want to refer to it strictly as collecting. Do we feel that it was better when it was less popular?
And games are less expensive.
Or do we feel that it's not even so much that, but less popular versus more popular, and games being less expensive and more expensive is part of that. Here's my thing: any niche hobby requires a certain amount of popularity to survive. So while it was nice to have low prices, we wouldn't have people still manufacturing 72-pin connectors, replacement controllers, alternative consoles to play when our consoles break, if there was no market for it. On the other hand, as a person who does work in this industry, and yes, I do price my stickers to reflect raises in prices accordingly, but yeah, my jaw drops when I see a game that I sold last year for $20 going for 80 now. And we try to find a reasonable middle ground on that and we charge it, but it's mind-blowing to me, and I don't feel like the prices are necessarily going to plummet anytime soon, because it's not like we have a bigger supply of this stuff coming in. There's a finite supply, so we need people to either lose interest or the prices are just going to continue to rise.
Let's back up.
Sure.
When you say about popular, how are you defining that? How are you defining it's to you? Is it strong enough that you have companies manufacturing new products? That to you means it's popular in terms of the support, in terms of Hyperkin making products.
That's popular enough
NX.
to me. T-shirts and Hot Topic and that sort of stuff. That's a little overboard. And I'll never begrudge a hobby just because it got popular. I like lots of bands that were once unknown that became popular, stuff like that. But I do like, yes, popular enough to keep the hobby going.
I'm going to splice the hair, though, because there is a big difference. And you only see this when you go to the convention. You see it more. There's a big difference between a retro game collector and a retro game player. Yeah. And those are two different markets.
Absolutely.
Because a retro game collector will go out and spend $250 on Earthbound stupidly. The retro gamer will say, "Well, I can just buy it on the the Wii U for like $10, and what the hell's the difference?"
And here's so, I mean, jumping gears, and here's the difference to me. When I'm behind the counter, and I like a lot of the collectors, but when I'm behind the counter, I'd rather talk to someone who enjoys the games and plays them, as opposed to someone. And I have people who are like this, and if he's listening, I love you, dude. You know who I'm talking about, because he might be listening. But when someone buys a really expensive game and it's in good condition, they flat out tell me that they're going home to put it in a drawer, I die a little inside. Because it's a good game, and I'd rather talk to the person who wants to play it.
But isn't that person, they're not only
not
only helping your business.
Yeah.
They're helping inflate the market so that there are Hyperkin and X making it. That's the problem is there is this sort of a bleed over.
Yeah, no,
and it's hard to
There's
distinguish because you see all these games here, and I say I'm somewhat of a gamer, being that I played all these. But you would say no, I'm not because I'm not playing these every day, and I don't have time to play them every day.
Well, of course
That's
you
the
don't,
difference.
but I know you do play them. So I mean, I'm not saying they have to play them every day. It's people who specifically buy with the intent of monetizing it or just holding on to it.
And
that's my problem.
That's a totally different issue, and that's what I really want to talk about.
But this is my problem. This is why I try to differentiate and say that I don't actually mean I hate all collectors. People who buy to monetize still refer to themselves as collectors. It's more like you have to divide collectors into two separate categories.
They're not, and that's where I think that's what has hurt. I'm glad you separated that out for me because that's what really has hurt the collecting scene the most.
No, it has, and that's my beef.
And I'm not going to begrudge. I'll be the first to admit that have I resold? Oh no, have I resold stuff to support the hobby in the past? Of course I have.
So have I.
There's no way else I would be able to get all this stuff.
Yeah. No,
but have I gotten to the game just to make money? No. That's the difference, and there are lots of people that have, and that's what when I say a reseller, that's a reseller. It's a person that has no respect for the scene, if you want to call it, no respect for the game.
They couldn't tell you how the game plays if their life
couldn't tell what the game is.
Yeah, they just know what titles require what price tag.
I know these guys. There's guys at the swap meet, really the nicest guys. They're the first to admit to me that they have no idea. What game was it? I was talking about that. I was trying to explain to them why the game was good and important, and they don't care. They just want to know, is it worth money?
Right.
Can I make $25 off it? And that's what has hurt the scene, and that's where I think the Hyperkin and X would have come about, and you'd have this interest without that crappy, now more and more 30% of it, 35% for it. It's growing every year. That percentage, I think that's marred, quote unquote, the market are those people. The people, for example, and I will get into sealed collecting because these are people. A lot of these sealed collectors are people that
cry alone while they masturbate.
Besides that, they are people that, by their own admission, were people that were involved in toy collecting or comics,
right?
And they saw video games as the next thing to get into and make money off.
And that's the point I wanted to make too.
They are hurting, and that's speculation.
This is where comics and game. This is where comics and toy collecting ran into trouble when you had people who came in who did not have an actual passion for the items they were buying. They only saw dollar signs.
And they're the first ones to leave.
Right.
They're the first ones. They're the first ones to get into the market when they see money, and they're the first ones to leave when they realize either the market's not for them anymore, or they get tired of it. And that's where you do see price drops if people start unloading stuff. With video games, though, it's difficult to say what direction it may or may not go. And I wish I could say all the prices would just collapse. And I say that owning the most valuable video game in the world. Yeah. And I still say I wish the prices would collapse to a certain degree. Obviously, they're not.
It's tough for them to collapse because we have a lot of tourists, we have a lot of day traders right now, and if they leave, we will see a drop. We'll see a drop, but unlike say record collecting where these things can be reprinted, we're not going to see a reprint of cartridges to ease prices.
No, and then the problem with any other commodity, like comic books, when there was a comic book bubble, they were still getting made new. You could still go out and collect.
Right.
You could still go out and read your Image, your Valiant, and even though all your fucking Marvel and DC comics had your die-cut freaking chrome covers, you could still buy them yourself.
Yeah.
Now, you have sellers controlling the market prices. And I blame eBay for abandoning their auction systems. They saw a lot more money with Buy It Nows. And now a lot of the Buy It Nows, the prices for listing, it used to be like listing for Buy It Nows was more. I don't know if there's a difference anymore. So there's no incentive but besides, I think you get less money taken off the top at the end if it is an auction. I think eBay kept that, but there's no incentives for some seller to get their Die Hard and run it at 99 cents and see it end up at $17, as I say. They might as well take it and put it at Buy Now at 40, 45 and sit on it for 2 months, 4 months until someone wants it. And that's the problem. You see a seller now go out and capture. If you look for any of these rare games like Color Dinosaur a few months back, Die Hard, you will find at least 1 or 2 sellers that will have multiple copies of the game. Sure. And it's not a coincidence. You can't go out and find 4 or 5 Die Hards by accident. This is a game I found twice in 12 years at the swap meet.
Right, we've had it twice at Luna.
You know what I mean? Games. So I mean, Color Dinosaur, there was definitely a seller at one point had at least 3 or 4 of them. And that bumps the price up, unfortunately. And that's where I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with the market setting the price, but that's not happening. And you can argue, and you can say, well, if people are willing to pay for it, but if you can't find it anywhere else, it's like the price of bread. And I know it's comparison between food and a collectible or whatever, but if you really want it and you're looking for a year and a half, you might just buy the bullet and hit that buy it now instead of looking for it elsewhere. And that's my problem with it.
Yeah, it's hilarious when you look at eBay and you look at completed sold listings and you look at buy it nows and auctions.
There's no auctions.
It's impossible. And here's kind of how we price things at Luna Video Games. Okay?
That's a commercial. Luna Video Games.
No, but I'm just saying, when we try to disregard buy it nows. Because buy it nows are impulsive. We try to look for auctions. We try to look for what people are truly willing to pay in a casual setting, which is what you get from an auction. So if I'm looking to say price a copy of Die Hard, right, and I see an auction closing out at 35, 25, 30, I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably going to price that at $30, maybe 25. Some collector's going to come in and be happy he's not paying shipping or whatever. He's going to grab it, out the door he goes. But if you try to go by buy it nows, it's 40, 45, 45. But they sell because people don't want to deal with the auction. And that's the other thing. People are impatient.
Like if you go on Amazon, a lot of people don't realize you can buy game systems and stuff on Amazon. And I talked to some sellers who say Amazon's like for that high-end clientele that doesn't want to deal with dirty eBay. They want to buy their NES system with games for $100.
It's just as dirty, though.
But that's the point. It's a mindset. They don't want to wait for an auction.
Right.
Where's my Kid Clown? You know how long it took me to get Kid Clown? It took me about a year and a half, 2 years. It was
worth that.
It was one of the worst. It was one of the worst. It was one of the last 25 games because you know why? I refused to pay the $35, $40 buy it nows that was controlled by I think it was like Hillbilly Media, the seller. I remember it from like 3 years ago on eBay. They had 4 of the fucking games, 4 of them.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I'm not paying $45, $40. There's no way Kid Clown. It's very uncommon. It's not a $45 game. I had to wait for an auction for a year and a half. You know how much I got it for? I got it for $11 plus shipping.
Yeah, I think like for instance that's a good example because I think that is one at Luna that goes for 15 or 20 if we get it because that's what it's worth to people who are willing to fight over it in an auction. It's only worth this amount on a buy it now if you're impatient and you have to have it right there.
Exactly.
And that's not a true market in my opinion.
It's not. And again, I wish I could say, well, if they don't have to buy it, but you don't understand I always talk about the stock market because if the stuff that went, if you acted with stocks, how some of these sellers do with games, they'd be in prison.
Yeah.
In terms of a manipulation of prices.
Sure.
And who knows what goes on with shill bidding, and that goes on a lot.
Oh, tons.
Shill bidding, putting up these really high buy it nows in order to get just ridiculous, like my fucking sealed statement events. I want $100,000 for just to get their other items noticed. That crap. But just buying up the market on certain stuff, they're acting like freaking trading places. They're trying to corner the frozen orange juice market. That's what they're trying to do with games. That's what they're trying to do, though.
Yeah.
And that's illegal to do that. But they're trying to do it.
But it happens in any collectible hobby that gets popular.
And that's where it comes down to, where it's trying to separating out the gamer side of it from the collector, and the collector from the profiteer.
And I guess if I really need to break it down, this is how I view it. You are the gamer who doesn't care, you just want to play.
Yes.
You are the gamer collector, and I'm cool with you. And you are the gamer monetizer, and I don't like you at all. And the
straight monetizer.
And the collector monetizer. I'm sorry. Gamer collector monetizer, or straight monetizer. But I look at them the same way because they're still trying to get these things up. They're building a collection of the expensive titles to sell.
Yes.
It's like the people who hoard copies of stadium events. They're collecting them so they can fix the fucking prices.
Yes, and that's still going on to extent, but it's a shame that the scene was unwilling to call out the person that did have 4 box stadium events at one time and got them all within like 2 months, and it's a shame. It's a shame, and that's the whole thing where I think there's too much of that now, where people get into it because they see the money, and then I hope they take a bath, and I know when I say that the value of all these going down. I don't care though because I'm not looking to sell this stuff.
Another thing I'd say about the collecting scene. It's a broad topic in gaming and retro gaming in general, is I feel like we're not going to see a dive in Nintendo and Super Nintendo. And I think some people are hoping for this as older people our age, a little bit older. I've encountered a few people at work who have talked like this. Who are like, well, Atari was once a lot of money, and then Atari stopped being worth money.
Yeah.
Here's the big difference, and here's where I'm going to state my opinion. The Atari's not a whole lot of fun to play. There are good games for the Atari, but in general, the Atari does not age as well.
It's mostly
people
crap.
People were buying and collecting Atari based on nostalgia alone and not on gameplay. Yars' Revenge is fantastic, and I love Kaboom, but people were not doing this on gameplay. They were doing it on nostalgia. Nintendo is the point where you can look at a screen and be like, that's a dude who's jumping on a mushroom.
Yes.
And that's a stock.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no franchises on Atari, basically.
Games come into their own. Even and I get these kids all the time, and I love them. I think they're cool. I get these 13-year-olds who come in, and they can hold a conversation with me about old Nintendo games, and it's because they're fun. They still have that appeal. If a Nintendo game holds an appeal to a kid who wasn't alive when it was around, then it's probably not. The appeal is probably not going to go anywhere.
The only thing I would argue or say maybe is that as Nintendo collectors, and this is a caveat to this, as Nintendo collectors get older, establish families, they may want to dump it when they hit their 40s and 50s. However, like you said, I know young kids, 13-year-olds that are starting to collect this too.
Right.
So maybe it'll be a cycle where
we'll see some interesting price slumps, but I don't think we're going to see them permanent. You know, we're going to see them.
It'll be interesting to see what a game like The Last Starfighter goes for in 10 years. You know, an uncommon game that is crap.
Garbage.
So, you know, but right now,
$5 game.
Nintendo is defined by rarity for the most part. That 90% of the games
it was in '99, yeah.
Well, no, but what I mean is that like on the Super Nintendo right now, the very uncommon games are still $3-5. On Nintendo, they are not. They are $20-$25. So I'll be interested to see if this slips down to what I think might happen, which a lot of people do, where they think the very high end stuff may remain high end. But the fun games like Contra will always be $25-$30, but all these games that no one gives a shit about except collectors, they're gonna drop. Well, and as people don't care about, because it'd be like, why do I need all these? Am I ever gonna play this crappy game? No, I'll sell it. I'll just sell it, and then people start getting rid of their fucking Clash balls and getting rid of their awful Last Ninjas. Well, you know, and then those games just drop. So then you have 80% of the games just $3 to $5, and then the 20%, you know, stay wherever.
That's sort of our mindset when we sell too. Is games that aren't going to move because they're not any fun, but they're slightly uncommon.
Yeah. We'll
go for a lower price than something that is fun, that is more common.
I have the manual for Last Starfighter.
Good, it's not going to make that game any better.
I reviewed it. You never saw my review, did you?
I think I did watch a review on that.
Oh my god!
About it, but I might have watched.
My hair was bigger in that review than ever before, actually.
But no, like uncommon stuff, and I think you make a point. Uncommon stuff like that matters to collectors now, but isn't fun to play, is going to perhaps drop in value as time goes on.
Sure. Who knows about the unlicensed stuff? Like, you know, who knows about like
that fluctuates constantly.
Pest Terminator, which remember I did buy at Luna Video Games.
Yes, you did.
In 2008 when I visited.
You also bought Prince of Persia, boxed, complete for like $8.
I did. That wasn't that time, but it was eventually.
Yeah.
Then I got it loose. Afterwards, I've got some great deals at Luna. I got my DuckTales 2 complete in box for $40. Yeah. Remember I got all those box games. That was like what, 2.5 years ago.
That was was that before you moved here or after?
No, that was after. That was after. I was here for like a year.
Yeah.
I think.
That's right.
Yeah, and so I think it's over here. My DuckTales 2.
Yeah, that was probably the last time ever anyone would have gotten that game for that price.
Why? That's how much it was loose at the time. I think it was $4 game.
No, I'm just saying, like, immediately after that, all those copies boxed probably shot up.
Because of me?
No, not because of you, but that was like probably the cutoff point. That
2 years ago?
Ridiculously.
Prices did take another shoot up about 2 years ago.
2 years ago, and then I'd say 6 months ago, everything started to go.
6 months ago, even more?
Not Nintendo. Super Nintendo's been going crazy for the past 6 months.
I think because people see another market to monetize, just like TurboGrafx-16. No one gave a shit about TurboGrafx-16 until about a year ago.
So that's another thing to bring up. Collectors, as they finish up collections from Nintendo that they started in 98, 99, they move on to the next thing that they can think of, which for some people is Turbo, because it's roughly the same type of games that they collected on the Nintendo, or it's Super because it's the next Nintendo system. So Demon's Crest, for instance, we used to sell that game for $20. That was probably $5 more than it was worth on eBay. That game goes for $80 to $100 now.
Thank God, insane. I finally got my copy
in the span of a year.
My DuckTales 2's by you next to the other DuckTales.
Oh yes.
I always forget. It's funny. I always forget. Like I had Mega Man 2 in the box. I was like, it's just like the. That's the only Mega Man I had, really. Anyway. So yeah. So we'll see where retro gaming goes from here in terms of collecting. It's interesting. I'm gonna be in Portland, and Portland is cool because
It's an interesting barometer at the very least.
it is because again you see like the 12-year-old kid that has like last year literally 12-year-old said, yeah, I have like 450 500 NES games. I'm like, what the like, you know how long it took me to get 500 games? It took me like 5-6 years to get 500 games, you know, and my stream of collecting. And that's the other thing that feeds in the prices. People jumping in and going on eBay and just saying, I want this. I'm going to get all these games within a year. And a lot of people try to do that.
Well, and that's, I mean, to go back
And then if you only have 4 people doing that, you know, then you're, you know, what is this game? Rare game, hopefully. Then P. Radicus Cusp Conflict, which is actually a pretty good game. This goes from a $12 game to a $40 game because all of a sudden you have 5 people at the same time that want it.
Right.
It's actually a really good game.
So,
yeah.
We've got about... What are we doing?
Is that the end of our topic?
Yeah, we've got about 10, 15 minutes left. 15 minutes.
Fuck sealed collecting.
Fuck sealed collecting.
Fuck grading sealed games, I'll just say.
Fuck collecting for monetary purposes.
Yes.
Hey, if you're enjoying collecting and you're playing your games, then I'm all for it.
I'll say profiteering more than just...
Yeah, profit, yes.
Because in collecting, there's always about value. Is it always in the back of your mind a little bit, kind of like, it's cool, oh, this one's worth a lot of money, Miami 2. But profiteering is a manipulation of pricing. That's where the problem comes in. That's where I speak out against it. Whenever I'm at these conventions and there's a video game collecting panel, I always speak out against it. And because that, some people in the video game collecting world don't like me. Fuck them. I don't care if they don't. Yeah. Fuck you. I don't care.
Would you quit stating your opinion as fact? Anyway, and to go back to the original question, you know, the popularity thing. I have no issue with video game collecting or retro game playing being popular at all. I like it because I naturally enjoy talking about my hobby. I like it when people come into the store and talk. It's just a matter of what people do once that becomes popular.
Sure.